Good evening, everybody. Yes, it is the old wolf, and he is back again. Another glorious Tuesday night, October 5th, 2021. Yes, that's the number we're looking for.
Well,
I found
You
it.
were going to say 2029.
Yeah, well, I wanted to add an additional 8 years of,
Complete and total hell.
yeah, just kind of skip the next 8 years.
The last 2 years have been like...
It's been, well, listen, but there's some good elements, too.
There's been some great
There's
elements.
some great elements.
But
And there's been some fuckery.
There's been some definite...
some weirdness.
Everybody's been calling it the garbage dumpster fire years.
Oh, yeah, I've heard a bunch of different analogies. But yes, anyway, we are here on the Witch and Wolf Wisdom Podcast.
Yep.
Episode 2, Interdimensional Cable.
Now, that is a very interesting title.
Well, I mean, again, it is a pop culture reference, obviously.
I wonder
and
if anybody can pick that up with a pop culture reference.
no, I'm sure there will be people in there, who will make the analogy.
Yeah.
But yes, Interdimensional Cable, I thought, was a great framework for what I like to talk about a lot is looking at things outside the box, choosing to change our perspective, to look at things that we normally wouldn't, connect with or relate to, or many times even, agree or simply want to understand. You know what I mean? So these are the elements that I find not only challenge us, but they also help us to grow, to evolve, and learn. If you're into that kind of thing, I mean,
necessity is the mother of invention. We were talking about this on the readings last night. That sometimes we go through that, as you call it, proverbial shit sandwich, in order to learn and grow.
Yeah, there's nothing like a nice chewy shit sandwich.
No, let's not
yes,
say we did.
yes. Listen, we all have to bite of the shit sandwich. This is the flip side.
This is true.
Of everything that we go through. Many times it's not of our choice. The sandwich is thrust upon us. God comes down and says, "Will you biteth of the sandwich, my son?"
What if we say no? Are we allowed to say no?
Of course we're allowed to say no.
Okay,
that's
so
the beauty of free will.
So what happens if we say no to the shit sandwich?
Well, it depends. There are many different scenarios. And that is, but see there, that's where it comes into play. That is the beauty of interdimensional cable, because you just never know where things might end up.
So I am curious to see if anybody knows the reference to interdimensional cable.
Well, yeah, granted, again, it'll be framed throughout the evening, but in its simplest context, we choose how we look at many things. There's a great comedy skit that I remember as a kid. Back in the day, those of you who remember old school TV, you had a very limited selection of channels to choose from. And one of the things that I used to, kind of sneak, but, my mother was allowing it, was watching Monty Python on PBS.
Oh.
And at that time, there wasn't a whole lot of comedy, especially that kind.
Yeah, I mean,
of
I was
comedy.
lucky if I could stay up to watch Johnny Carson.
Well, I mean, again, framework, you lived in a Bible-thumping,
Oh, yes. Thump, thump,
gun-toting, you got a
Let's-
pretty
let's-
smile there,
No,
kinda.
no, yeah, right? No, let's baptize our child at 5 years old because she keeps telling me, well, God told you something. Yeah,
Good evening,
that's
everybody.
it.
The Goblin Queen is on. My brother Josh. I see Elspeth. Hello to you all. Hello,
Elspeth, healing
Susie.
light and love to you, Elspeth, with the cracked ribs. She cracked her ribs.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so.
Oh, Jesus.
Love, light, and healing to you, darling.
Absolutely. But yes, back to the analogy. As a kid, I used to watch Monty Python, and I was just blown away by not only the style of their comedy, but their complete and utter disdain for the structures and the frameworks of how shit was.
Religion.
AKA, be it religion, be it, what I think is one of the greatest, comedy skits ever is the Dead Parrot. skit where it's basically this play on how we choose to perceive things and how we try and put that off on other people. And basically the shopkeeper...
I don't remember. I kind of vaguely
The shopkeeper sells John Cleese a
That's
dead
right,
fucking
it's dead.
parrot.
It's
So
dead.
he
All
brings
things
it
dead.
in there and he's like, hey,
Lee.
I want my fucking money back. Okay, this is the dead parrot. And the guy's arguing with, no, he's just taking a nap. And he goes through all these different analogies about it's gone to the hereafter, it has embraced kingdom come, this parrot no longer functions, you know what I mean? And they're just back and forth with the one trying to inflict his...
It's dead, Jim.
Well,
it's
trying to
not dead,
convince
Jim.
him that, no, it's alive, where the other guy's like, no, fuck you, I live in reality, and this fucking thing is dead. Hence, interdimensional cable. Again,
So we
we
made
choose.
one up from another. Jamie Lee is one of the wonderful people that I got to go down and do a wedding for her earlier this summer, and the old wolf here wrote a beautiful track for them,
Yes.
her and Derek. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know, even though it's a different name, that's the same person.
Oh, okay. Well,
No,
yeah.
no, because she has her different name.
Everybody's got, different things. And it's cool, don't get me wrong, I'm the old wolf.
Name, and Jamie's first name and Lee middle name, so
Right.
she goes by Lee more than Jamie.
I'm the dude in some circles, asshole in others.
You're-
We all wear our masks,
Yeah,
and that's great.
absolutely.
That's beautiful. But again, that framework of looking at things from that different perspective, and
Yeah.
in the framework of that element of comedy, in many ways became a lifelong coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I talk about it a lot. It's part of my magic in reframing not only elements personally, but in situational elements. And
you definitely go into the
well,
dark humor at times.
sometimes it's needed.
Yeah.
But if we go back to the earlier analogy, if you're forced to, deal with a shit sandwich, you might as well try and put the best spin you can on it.
Maybe jazz it up, a few herbs.
Yeah, throw some
spices.
fucking tomatoes on it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Maybe some Grey Poupon if you're into that kind of
Well, the
thing.
Grey Poupon can go on the poop.
Maybe some
There you go.
capers, whatever
Yeah,
floats your fucking boat.
absolutely.
But it's always that trade-off,
Is it
it's that
vegan?
context. Yeah, listen, I did. Fine. The witch obviously has decided this is her podcast tonight, and she's gonna steer it
does
where
have
the
me
fuck
in
she
there.
wants to
No,
go.
I'm just harassing you.
Yeah, no, that's right. You can get the fuck out now.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
Good luck with that. I'll stick it in.
yeah, I know you live with me. Where are you gonna go? My nickname for family is Meanie. Yeah, no, listen, we all have those interesting. I think everybody has like an Uncle George that likes to touch people inappropriately. I mean, I think that's a general consensus for most people that
I have an Uncle George.
everybody has a creepy Uncle George somewhere.
I don't know if he was creepy. He was definitely angry, but.
Well,
but I have
you know
an
what?
Uncle
The rest of
George.
us will talk.
Everybody has a creepy uncle.
The witch is from this perfect reality where there are no creepy
Oh
uncles.
no, he's not creepy.
Or,
He beat the crap out of people.
I
mean, it was just full on aggressive.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, we all have those interesting, little dynamics of elements. But again, the perceptual context again,
Hello, Monica.
as a younger person, as children, we look at things in one way. As we get older, obviously, those perceptives, those dynamics will change for a variety of different reasons. But some of those elements, again, imagination, that's where the context for the interdimensional cable, part of that framework is we're only limited by our imagination. Again, I talk about it a lot, and this is, the framework of a lot of my teaching and trying to get people to understand what the fuck is magic, And magic is
What
just...
the fuck is magic?
Well, magic is a word. And just like a lot of words, it has a lot of different meanings depending upon how it's used. 200 years ago, elements of things that are science and normal for us, electricity, Wi-Fi, radio, TV, vibrators, shit like that, they were magic. They were heresy. They were dark elements
Actually, I think technically,
Work of the devil.
since you brought it up,
What?
vibrators were seen as a cure for hysterics in women.
Well, that doesn't fit into my narrative.
Oh, okay. Well, then you should have said vibrators.
But listen, we can have that conversation. Obviously, dildos are more of an important thing than I thought. Besides just a quick attempt at a side prop in my podcast, but no, of course not.
I know you're gonna bring up vibrators.
Yes,
You know
yes.
I'm gonna do something about it.
But anyway, magic is really again defined by perspective. 200 years ago, the elements that we utilize in everyday life as science, as technology, was considered magic. So it's a framework. It is a perspective context. And in that, the energy, one of the most important frameworks, again, and I teach this a lot, is imagination, is that kind of almost innocent energy, that playful, that sprite kind of.
Well, most kids do have an imaginary friend growing up.
Right. Well, that's a great example, analogy, but it's the ability to think outside the box. It's the ability to kind of create all these, fucking unicorns flying through the sky, and, Voltron with his flaming sword. All these different elements are born of.
Rocket ship.
Right, they're all born of that element of imagination, and that imagination allows us to again perceive and put things into a different framework. And for some people, you know what I mean, it is again a coping mechanism. It is a defensive tool against other elements.
Defense against the dark arts.
Well, I will use one of the elements that I was going to discuss. It is that fine line balance, and I will use the more recent tragedy. You look at a guy and somebody who influenced me in many of my elements, Robin Williams. Robin Williams was an incredibly gifted, incredibly powerful comedian, and
Yes,
for
was.
years, he used those elements in a variety of different ways, but unbeknownst to most people, he struggled desperately and deeply with elements that eventually, unfortunately, culminated with him,
Killing himself.
taking his life.
The world didn't find out until it was
Right.
too late. And it's also an analogy that sometimes the happiest people are, the most gregarious people.
And therein lies the key point. Many times these are double-edged swords.
Yes.
We'll use them to deflect. We'll use them to obviously respond, but they also can, in many ways, become masks and cut us off from the other elements. Now, granted, as a musician, the mentality aspect is, especially as a performer, that you have to keep a separation between the real you and the performer you. But over time, that becomes reinforced and it creates an isolation. And we've seen it, unfortunately, time and time again. Some of them are more mishap-oriented, like a Janis Joplin or a Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
But others, you know what I mean, you see the framework, again, time and time again. Kurt Cobain is in that kind of gray area, because I'm more of a conspiracy theorist when it comes to Kurt than on other ones. But needless to say, they're a whole Chris Cornell. The list just goes fucking on and on and on and on and on.
He's the most recent. Isn't
Yeah.
he? Chris Cornell was.
Yeah, they probably.
And
But
then Anthony, who was the chef, who was also.
oh, Bourdain?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the common theme, and here's where it all connects and stuff. These were all people, empaths, who use their magic and their gifts in being, performers, musicians, comedians, chefs, whatever the analogy, but they all had that, again, framework of their element affecting and influencing the interaction with other people. You know what I mean? And that flip side element tends to make them isolated. It opens the door to the other problematic elements of, everything from addiction and, self-abuse and depression. And, again, these are all symptoms You know, they are the frameworks now of what happens as these things grow and spread. You know, not unlike a cancer, it starts to affect other things.
Yeah.
But in its purest form, they are elements that we can learn and use, not only to protect ourselves, but to help other people. But they can.
How do we keep from going down, let's say, the proverbial, let's call it the Robin Williams rabbit hole?
You know, it is not as simple a thing, I don't believe, is being able to say, hey, do this, hey, do that, per se. The common element, and again, is crucial, you know, conversations, communication.
Having that place where you can take the
having
mask off,
you know some place where those elements can be shared, and that other people, you know, have insight and a connection into what the fuck is actually going on with us.
Mm-hmm.
But here's again, ultimately, you know, we all make our decisions come hell or high water. You know what I mean? So, you know, again, for the person who chooses, say, as an alcoholic, until an alcoholic wants to stop drinking, there's nobody that's going to stop them from drinking.
True.
So they're going to run back into praise. And the same analogy in drug addiction, the same analogy in many of the types of behaviors, be it gambling, be it with food, on both ends of the spectrum, be it, you know, people who dance into the, you know, bulimic end of the spectrum, or the people who dance into the overeating elements of the spectrum, or sex, or money. Right, these are all just elements that are become symptoms of the underlying problem that we literally attempt to drown ourselves in.
So I guess part of the solution would be, one of the things that I think you point out on a regular basis, is having that recharge time, or as you sometimes call it, the reset time. That element to be able to reset yourself, to recharge yourself, to pull away, to deal with.
And having the connections, not trying, you know, we become, listen, many of us, we become used to, we're conditioned to running by ourselves. Mm-hmm. That, you know, you can't show emotions because it's weakness. You can't trust people, you know, all the shit. And yes, there are some elements in context.
Yeah.
You know, but overall, they are conditioning, they are constructs that prevent us from having those security nets underneath us. AKA, you know, when you have fellowship, when you have people around you that know you and know what the fuck is going on, that you communicate with, they're many times in a better position to see elements that we won't, because again, just as you said, we become emotionally compromised.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we, again, especially as empaths, we'll justify the shit out of anything. You'll be like, oh,
yeah,
I've been here, I know this, fuck you, get out of my way. You know, and then boom, you know, next thing you know, you're like the Wile E. Coyote with your hair all burnt off, looking around stupid and shit.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, and we can justify anything, whether it be for ourselves or, you know, one of the things that we do is empaths is we tend to justify for the narcissist in our life.
Well, listen, sometimes we're the fucking narcissist. Yes,
that's
unfortunately, again, this is part of that cyclic element when we become so, again, used to, conditioned in that kind of self-justification. It is an incredibly thin line into narcissism.
Hello, Ashley Hart. Much love and healing to you right now.
And hello, Cynthia. So yeah, again, a lot of times we set ourselves up by default. We think we're right, we're in that mode of self-justification, but in reality, we're dancing within that low-level element of narcissism, because we're forcing our context, we're forcing our agenda, because we believe. Yeah. Now that's the difference. You have different levels I talk about a lot within narcissism. You know, you have the person who unknowingly, it's not their motive or context to manipulate for a hurtful or deceptive purpose. It's just, again, by default, a side effect, versus the narcissist that gets up in the morning and sets up that plan and,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Now, for the well-meaning narcissist, let's put it that way, the well-meaning narcissist, the most dangerous words I believe that the well-meaning narcissist uses is for their own good. I'm doing this for their own good. That one is like one of the instant, well-meaning narcissist justification phrases.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's the one
trigger.
That's the one I see coming out of Texas right now. These old gnarly white dudes, and well, it's for their own good. We have to tell these women what they can and can't do with that vagina. That vagina's just too dangerous. We've let it run out of control for too long.
We're gonna do this for the own
It
good.
breeds contempt for the Lord Jesus Christ. Well, how are we gonna keep all this shit together? We have to take the vagina away from them. That, my dear friends, is interdimensional cable.
Yes.
In a reality, in a galaxy not so far away.
We wish it were very far away.
Yes, there are elements going on
God.
that, in my personal opinion, okay, and let me again qualify for the record here on the podcast that these are, by default, expressed opinions owned by the old wolf, aka Frank Capel. Yes, I put my name on this shit.
All right.
So, with that being said, everybody's entitled to an opinion. Everybody's entitled.
Yeah, but you know they say.
And entitlement is a dangerous, slippery slope,
It
and
is.
I'm using it specifically. You're entitled to have that opinion. You are entitled to that framework of free will. However, the fine line becomes when it crosses over onto somebody else. Now,
Your
again,
rights should end at the tip of my nose.
here comes the gray area,
There we
and
go.
you open the door with, the for your own
For your
good.
own good,
The
yes.
justification element.
I'm going to do this for your own good.
Now, there's a case to be made in some elements, and I will use the current analogy. For your own good, we're telling you go out and get the fucking vaccination shots.
Yes, please.
Okay? Do yourself and your family and your friends a favor. Go take the fucking needle, because everybody out there, for the most part, unless you live someplace where there are no vaccines, and if you live someplace where they don't have vaccines, you're probably not listening to fucking YouTube or Facebook or any of that shit. But with that being said, for your own good,
Yes.
please take the goddamn vaccine, okay? There's context there, okay? Because it is for a greater good. I'm not trying to take your freedom away from you. I'm not trying to stick Bill Gates microchips in your asshole. Guess what? Everybody here who's got a driver's license or a social security card or a bank account or a car or a phone, guess what? Bill Gates already has your fucking number, okay? Okay?
Truth.
Please come back to reality with us. We still love you. Okay, I don't want to hate any of you unless you're a card-carrying Nazi. In that case, yeah,
We're
it's
gonna
not
hate
going to
you.
go well. I fucking hate you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Nazis are
You know
bad.
what I mean? I tried to the best of my ability to live that open framework. However, a duck is a duck is a duck. Okay? There are certain things that just doesn't fly in this wolf's reality, and
Nazis
I'm sorry.
is one of them.
You know,
Nazis
I
we
own
do.
it. I will own it. I take it. You know what I mean?
What do you get when you throw 1,000 Nazis in the ocean?
1,000 dead Nazis.
A good start.
A good start.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a great thing. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's still pollution in a way. I'm not sure I want that in.
No,
You know,
they're
well, that's not. Listen,
they're
that's not fair to
biodegradable.
sea life. You know what about all
They're
these hard?
biodegradable, and at least then their bodies are.
But how do
going
we
to
know? I mean, listen again. Using the analogy earlier, how do we know that they're? And I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it here tonight on this podcast. How do we even know that they really are fucking human?
You know,
Okay?
we don't, technically.
How do we know?
We don't.
Maybe it's something, maybe this is the problem, you know what I mean? That it somehow gets into the water supply. Maybe it's fucking airborne. I don't know. You know, if you want to embrace some conspiracy theories, let's at least embrace something that maybe gives us a path back to a better element, a better
Right.
future. Because I don't get it. I don't understand how people can get up in the day and, have their eggs and coffee, a little Mein Kampf, and, go get the torches and, the pitchforks and, embrace their white Jesus and then roll out the door like everything's fucking okay.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, maybe we should get rid of them for their own good.
Well, again, therein lies
There
the
goes-
fine
we're going right
line.
back to the good
Okay,
part.
you know, in a truly thoughtful society,
Mm-hmm.
the philosophy, the context would be, you know, tolerance. You know, that you want to have open discussion. You want to have open debate. Not everybody's going to agree or understand or be able to find
People don't know how
every
to
element.
debate properly anymore. They go from I think we've lost that skill to be able to talk about controversial topics,
Well,
because they go from let's this whole like, okay, let's talk about the topic, to I fucking hate you. Well, I fucking hate you.
Well, I
You know?
think that's more reflective of the element that certain aspects of it don't fly. There really is no debate. So by default, again, in the adaptation, if you know that you can't win a debate using facts, oh my God, what are facts? I mean, there's such a, you know,
Is there such
Yeah.
a thing? Is science
oh,
a thing?
science,
is a thing.
you know
Oh
what
my
I mean?
God.
All these crazy
World's
elements
flat.
that are all conspiratorial in nature, of course.
Mhm.
But why, if you know that you can't, what, you know, again, and that's become the mentality I believe in the here and now, is they're not even pretending. We're just going to cut, you know, fuck it. We're going to, we used to try and wrap the bullshit in a pretty little box with a bow and put some sprinkles on it and,
Season
you
it
know,
up a bit.
maybe throw a little Chanel number 7 on it so it doesn't smell. Now they're just pulling the shit steaming and just shoving it in your face. Here it is.
Oh, going back to the monkey age then. You know, the
Well,
monkeys grab the shit.
but
throw the
again,
shit.
you know, if there is no framework, again, why waste and divert the energy? And
Well,
that
I
has
wanna
become
know where you
it's
were
become
going with-
weaponized.
I want to know where you were going with that, since I opened the door for your own good. Where were you going with that?
Well, I mean, for your own good, sometimes does
Is it
have a
frame-
practical application.
Okay.
As a parent, okay, when
That
my
makes
kid was
sense,
5
yes.
years old and wanted to stick his dick in the fan,
Don't
for your own
do it.
good, monkey, no.
No.
Okay, that is a justifiable context.
That is justifiable.
Okay, you do know better than your child, and you are protecting your child
Mm-hmm.
from
But
altering his gender. You know what I
at the
mean?
same point, that is a justification that adults, grown-ass adults, use on other grown-ass adults on things that should be their choice.
Again,
Such as what a woman does with her fucking body.
right. Therein lies that really kind of slippery slope now. So again, the practical, and this is again the way I was taught and what I teach, is you have to look at everything for context. Context is what defines elements of motive. It defines the variables of a situational element, because in its very basic form, we're all unique. Every situation, every moment in time is unique. There will be common elements, okay? When you stick your hand in a hot oven, it's gonna fucking burn, okay? Everybody can relate to the feeling of burning flesh. It
Yep.
sucks, okay? But the variances, the gray area, again, becomes the element of context. So, using the earlier analogy, yes, you know, it's okay to define, you know, again, for the greater good, to protect people, context, motivation, versus, hey, I just don't like the fact that you have a vagina and you can do whatever you want with it, and I'm a pissed off old white guy, and I got nothing better to do but to
legislate my body.
really just kind of, you know, force my twisted sexuality through a laser beam, and, you know, basically, you know, use abortion or access to abortion as a kind of silhouetted guise to what it's really always been. It's a control mechanism. It is an element
People,
that
even-
threatens
what gets
the
me is
establishment.
even women get really crazy on this whole pro-life, which I don't feel like the pro-lifers are pro-life at all, because they don't. Once you have the baby, they don't give a shit about the child. That's a whole other thing.
But these are the same people of the same element want to send children off to die in a desert somewhere on the other side of the world for some bullshit made up.
It's for
freedom. Freedom or for God or the same people that are right. Again, that are going to leave children and elderly people to starve in the streets or want to go drop bombs on people, or any one of the 1,000 analogies where, life has no meaning here, but yes, we got to protect, the unborn child.
Yep.
Even if, it was, some scumbag decided to rape a little girl in a back alley, somehow she should be forced to go through that context because of, somebody had a conversation and God said this is somehow the way it should be. Let me tell you, God told me that they're all full of shit, okay? And you can quote me on this. You can go out and this is quotable, okay? God is tired of people talking in her name. She's tired of the bullshit, okay? She has had enough of it. And that is why we're seeing breakdowns in elements of things that are now a cumulative effect, cause and effect. You pollute the water for long enough, guess what? You can't drink the water anymore. It's not fucking rocket science.
If Mama Gaia ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
But yeah, these are all good. But here's the beautiful thing, again, about these elements. They're all there. History is there. It's at our fingertips. Knowledge is power. And power threatens, obviously, those who seek to control. Now, I'm not saying, hey, let's go pull a fight club and burn all the shit down, because that doesn't work, and that's not what I'm saying.
People have tried it, and it does create a context for change. I will say that revolution has brought change.
But the cost
is
usually really just so far off the fucking deep end that, right. Yes. Now, that doesn't mean that, there are elements sometimes where we do have to take a stand, and that is the concept, again, the choice of free will, where that line defines for you. But I always like to say, and this is, again, my baseline on it, what is to be gained? It's a simple equation. Is the juice worth the squeeze, as I like to say also.
One of your favorite
You know
phrases.
what I mean? Sometimes it's about the internal dynamic, that sometimes we just have to make the cognitive effort for ourselves. That's why as empaths we can't give up on all the fucked up people around us, because we believe, well, maybe just if I do this, maybe they'll love me, maybe they'll be better, maybe they'll change, maybe things will be different. And it's that inherent hope.
Yes.
And I'll say it's a good thing. It's a double-edged sword.
It is.
But it still is a good thing.
It's a good thing that we try. There comes a point to where it becomes so damaging to ourselves as empaths that we have to learn somehow to let go. And when enough is enough, when the juice is not worth
and when is enough enough?
That's a good question.
And again, there it goes back to that unique element, that framework of context.
I think one of the points where enough is enough is when it becomes so damaging to yourself that you're lacking that survivability level. You're lacking that ability to just get through a day without breaking down.
Sometimes, you know what I mean? Again, especially...
That's what it was for me anyway.
Right. Every situation has different elements that will tie in. They'll have the what I call that triad of, past, present, and future. And those dynamics will shift and evolve depending upon the nature of the situation.
Yeah.
But I found, especially as I've gotten older, that the more we try and force the context, the more it tends, especially for empaths, that it comes back at us, in just crazy fucking insane ways.
But I think you have to realize that there's a difference. To me, there's a difference between the person that an empath is trying to help that wants to get better genuinely, and then the other that doesn't even recognize that there's a problem.
Well, I mean, again, some of it depends on the framework.
It's like the alcoholic analogy.
Right. Many times, and I talk about this a lot, we become emotionally compromised, and many times it's for valid reasons. You know what I mean?
Explain
We
what
love
emotionally compromised means, because I mean I
Well,
get it, but let's quantify it here.
the framework of being emotionally compromised is simply about how emotions, and I'll use the Star Trek Spock analogy, how
Okay.
emotions will cloud and distort from logic, from
True.
practical elements, aka because we care, and especially as empaths, because we have this overblown sense of that emotional connection, the guilt or the love or whatever the framework of the element in play, that we're not seeing the baseline. We're not seeing the logic, and even if we do see it, we're not applying it into the equation because, again, we are emotionally compromised. So this will tend to reflect in, the case analogy would be, an abusive relationship where one partner is the submissive who has now put their self-esteem, their identity into their partner.
The
codependency.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other partner obviously uses it, manipulates it, and weaponizes it to the degree now that any and all ridiculously destructive, horrible behaviors and actions will be accepted and justified by the other party because they are emotionally compromised. Because
So making excuses for
making excuses,
somebody's bad behavior.
right, it is a, is an indirect way of framing it, but it all stems from the element of that emotional connection. Because we can also be emotionally compromised the other way. We could fucking hate somebody so fucking badly
that
we won't see the greater good element because we are consumed by hate, or we're consumed by envy or jealousy. Or here's another one, and this is a bigger problem, I think personally, especially now, are the elements of sexuality and lust. People will just, boom. Oh.
So are we going into Freud now?
No, we don't have to go into Freud per
Okay.
se. No. But it does give me an element to do my first little segue. Thursday, coming up 8:30, going to be doing another one of my little workshops.
Click the button.
Ah, yes, I gotta love this technology. Love this technology.
It's
Love
down
this.
underneath the promo.
Right. So we want to go to the da 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 da.
Click there.
Da 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 da.
Click there.
And waba.
Yeah. Click that back on.
Okay, yes, there we go. Haha, it only took me 3 tries now. Yes, navigating your trauma triggers. Okay, this is again one of the ones I keep getting asked about over and over and over again. Is, how do we deal with the individual elements of our trauma triggers? How do we identify them? And more importantly, how do we deal with them in the framework of our everyday lives? I talk about this a lot. Knowledge is great, but without a framework of how it applies in our lives, it's almost worthless to us in many degrees. It's like handing somebody, the schematics and the blueprints to build a really beautiful house, and then handing them a toothbrush and say, okay, build it with this. You're going to look at the fucking toothbrush and you're going to look at the blueprints and you'll be like, how the fuck do I do this? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't translate.
Right.
So the workshops we started as a way to frame things not only in a more practical aspect, but to actually focus them on the individual elements, which is why all of these workshops are limited seating, because we do deal with the specific
People
personal
have a chance
elements,
to interact,
right?
and
That
talk about it.
we can get into those types of things. And the simple analogy, strength in numbers. There are these aspects that we carry, that we walk around with. We get told all the time, don't overreact, stop being so emotional, you shouldn't feel that way. What the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? We get shut down, we get dismissed.
Yeah.
And
Gaslighting.
well, not only gaslighting, but it becomes an internalization now. Now we're holding all this negative shit.
So yeah, we've got a whole
It becomes a
dialogue.
poison. It becomes a cancer.
So this is about how to get rid of some of that shit.
To some
or at
degrees,
least-
but also just recognizing them. Many times we don't understand what is triggering us. Why am I feeling this way? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And without, again, sometimes having that other perspective or a framework to, again, break it down and look at it and say, oh, okay, this goes here, that, you know, and find a path through it.
Mhm.
Many people will just, they'll walk and just repeat through the cycles, and it's a shitty way to live.
So speaking of interactivity, as we are going live on these podcasts, yes, they are available afterwards for people to listen to, enjoy, peruse, and whatever. But those of you who are joining us live, feel free to participate and add in your commentary. We'd
Yeah,
like to see
listen,
what you think.
everybody is always welcome.
if
That's
you're-
part of the framework here.
Yeah, if you're watching afterwards, please add your comments, give us
See,
your
I think
thoughts.
it's what you talked about earlier before we did this and stuff. Like, if we threw out there and be like, hey, the witch is going to be doing free cards, there'll be 200 people in here begging for cards.
Yes.
But we're talking about deep, heavy shit. So, of course, you know, we've got people like
I think
Ashley
people like
and
deep, heavy
Lucretia
shit.
and Monica and Josh and Elspeth. And that's great. You know what I mean? I'd rather have 6 or 7 people have an honest conversation than just put it out there.
Exactly.
And that's really, again, the whole idea, at least for me to some degree with the podcast, is just to put it out there. Let it float.
Let it float in the universe.
You know what I mean? Like a leaf in the wind. See where it goes.
So, I mean, all the workshops that you're doing, they're framed around empaths. So I'm going to ask you your opinion on something. I know my opinion, but I've never asked you this question.
Shit.
Okay? Do you think there are more empaths these days, or that we're just more aware of the empaths? I mean, are we seeing more and more empaths developing, people with that empathic gift, or are we just now at a communication age, or a combination of both, where we are recognizing more of the empaths?
I think to some degrees it's an element now of survival that empaths have been around as long as humans have been around.
Yeah.
They've just been framed differently. They were witches, they were philosophers, they were artists or writers or teachers or any number of elements. So they've always been in play. What's happened now is that between the obvious elements of time and conditioning and the inherent threat that free-thinking people present to establishment and conditioning, aka, if you look at it historically, and if you just look at how the world has progressed from civilization to civilization, there is a common theme about creating a blueprint for what I refer to as the drone model. You want to look a particular way, you want to act a particular way. These are your goals. You want to do this, you want to do that, you want to reproduce, you want to go to work every day, punch the clock, make the shit that we want to, so the guys upstairs can make a lot of money, go home, watch some TV, here, you know, have a bud, this bud's for you, you know what I mean? If that doesn't work for you, come on down to the doctor. He can give you something stronger or harder with a fucking prescription, but it's all driven around
Mama's
all the
little helper.
drones just following the same path. Now, to some degrees, yes, that has to make sense. For a society to function, there has to be a common framework to make things work. Somebody has to pick up the garbage, somebody has to make the food. You know, all these elements have to be taken care of. But for empaths, especially within the framework of the world as it exists now, is a natural contradiction to many of the elements. So what you've had empaths, and a big chunk of the empaths have unfortunately gone over to the dark side in becoming narcissists. They are your power brokers, they are your abusers,
So you're saying
your
narcissists
fuckboys.
are empaths too?
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Well, I mean, narcissism is just empathy weaponized.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That
It-
always freaks people out when I tell them that. They're like,
Well, I mean, it's the same analogy when you try and get somebody to actually sit down, and once their brain opens up and they look at the context in trying to accept the framework of magic. Okay? Magic and science, they're flip sides of the same fucking coin. It's just limited by our understanding. Again, you ask somebody 400 years ago about Wi-Fi or internet or TV, and you would have been driven out of your village and or burned at the goddamn stake. Okay, because that was witchcraft, that was heresy, that was dark arts. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But it's now standard and normal. Accepted technology, accepted science.
They've even proven empathy and divine connection. I mean, they've actually proven that. I saw an article 25 years ago, 25 years ago, that they actually started studying this, where they put this kind of a brainwave recorder, big kind of helmet thing on people, different people of different religious persuasions, Buddhist monk, pastor, somebody who was big into transcendental meditation, all this other stuff, and said, okay, do your thing. And the brain literally lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. And areas that were not previously lit up before they went into that, their magic, so to speak, and their divine connection and trances or whatever.
Well, I mean,
they just lit up like a fucking Christmas tree.
It's just, again, these are words that we throw on to try and explain things that we don't understand. Call it divine, call it universe, call it whatever you want. Computers, no coincidence, are framed and designed around the base elements of our brains, aka the transference of data via an electronic process. And that's what we know to be true. And we've seen it in 1,001 different analogies, and 1,001 different elements, and 1,001 different places and times throughout fucking history.
Yep.
But it doesn't fit within, again, the construct of the model. Because guess
the drone
what?
Model you were talking about.
Just imagine the analogy, you know, and this is, you know, one of those, you know, flip side paradoxes. Imagine a world where everybody basically had magical powers. Imagine a world where people just embrace their unique elements. If you look at the state of what we are as a society now, imagine the fucking chaos if we didn't have the construct. So it is a double-edged sword, because we are not as evolved as we like to think we are as a whole.
I would agree with that.
And the high-functioning...
Just look at all the division we have right now. I mean, I definitely agree with
But
that.
high-functioning empaths, they tend to have the common theme of at least attempting to rise above
at the same
those
point,
elements.
and I'm gonna, this is one of my soapboxes, is I look inside of the spiritual community. I have been part of the spiritual community my entire life, is whether it was church-wise or ultimate, the spirituality that we have, you know, now that's more like the pagan, open spirituality kind of thing. All right. And I don't care whether you go into a Baptist church or whether you go into a open pagan circle, you've got this element of people who wear this kind of empathy and spirituality like a cloak and weaponize it inside the quote-unquote enlightened personas.
Oh yeah, every element of culture of our society, be it religious, be it philosophical, be it whatever, has the variances. It's like the same analogy. You got good cops and you got bad cops.
My path is better than your path.
It's all just smoke and mirrors. It is the framework of, you know, the self-justification. Hi, I'm an empath. My way is the way. But that's no different than, you know, the fucking, you know, colonists coming over and God has said you are heathens and therefore must submit or be gone. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. That's what the Crusades were about. That's what pretty much every element of conflict, you know, one way or another, either frames around, I want what you have, or I don't like the way you look, or somehow you represent some existential threat, or just simply, you know what I mean, again, whose dick is bigger.
You're not fitting the mold is a threat to me, quote unquote. It would be
again, right? A bunch of different analogies. I mean,
do you think though that we have more empaths now than we have at any point in history?
I think we have less in the way of the high functioning empaths, more narcissists, because again, our structure, at least within Western civilization, in my opinion, teaches us how to weaponize empathy without really acknowledging empathy. We call it other elements. It's salesmanship. It is capitalism now framed around, the business mentality, marketing, networking, Ponzi scheme. I'll sell you a fucking tree in Brooklyn, by the way. Would you write me a check?
Sure, here's your check.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it comes out in a bunch of...
Let me talk to my upline first.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta talk to my
But
upline.
and Monica says, she always knew she was an empath. She just didn't know how to handle it until lately. And I think that's, again, there's a common theme. At least within Western culture. Okay, and it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't matter if you're growing up in Germany or if you're growing up in Texas or if you're growing up in Norway. There are certain elements of Western culture that, again, condition us from children. You go to school, you learn particular elements of civics. Within your family structure, you have elements of religious dogma that are carried over within the framework of spirituality. Again, hereditary, be it family, be it whatever the case. But most of those elements, if not all of them, are based around fitting into these particular models.
Yeah.
We're supposed to look a particular way. We're supposed to act a particular way. We're supposed to talk a particular way. You drink this, you eat that, you do this, you do that. And anything that really kind of goes outside the scope gets now into that danger territory.
It becomes a
But
threat.
empaths have been conditioned and beaten down to force them into the mold. It's not unlike, anybody who's a fan of movies. It's the Matrix analogy. You can't have rogue programs running around inside the code.
Now, let me ask you, do you think that, we have all these empaths. I think that, in my opinion, empaths throughout history have either gone the narcissistic, weaponized way, like you were talking about, or they've been beaten down into like a submission level to go with the flow, go with what's expected.
Or like Martin Luther King, we just shoot him.
Yeah, exactly. I think that empaths are banding together more and more, strength in numbers, and learning to become what you call the high-functioning empath.
Yes, that is definitely, I believe, beginning to happen. Again, I think it's being forced by default because of the nature of the world that is now before us, and the understanding, and I think the deeper realization now that things have really gone off the rails a bit more. Again, say what you will, and this is not about politics or about religion or anything more than, the context about how we treat each other. So, my running little sarcastic dig, and I use this a lot, and I'm gonna use it again. Yes, we have the technology and the resources to broadcast Paris Hilton's vagina around this entire fucking globe into space past Uranus.
Oh,
and yes, I did use that pun. But somehow we can't figure out how to make sure that our children don't fucking starve.
Yeah.
We'll throw food out, tons of it, on a nightly goddamn basis, but yet somehow there are children that are still fucking starving.
That makes no sense.
There is such an absolute disconnect between what needs to be done and the will to do it.
So how do we get there? How do we get to where?
Well, strength in numbers. We learn, we build. You know what I mean? We speak up when and where we can. We
like
do the little things.
Leaders.
Right. Well, you have to lead by example. We need people to step up. But let's be honest. Anybody with any sense of decency or intelligence doesn't want anything to do with fucking politics.
Yeah.
So how the fuck are we supposed to deal with that when nobody wants to go anywhere near it? It's the same analogy with a lot of the aspects going on around us. You know what I mean? Because there is such a huge element of apathy that, again, most people, they just become framed within just protecting their little small piece of the world. And you can't blame them for that. You really can't. And we're all guilty of it to different degrees.
Well, one of my favorite phrases is be the change that you want to see in the world.
Well, you talk about it, and, we manifest what we choose to manifest, even if we're convincing ourselves that somehow our hand is being forced. And yes, there are outside influences, but ultimately we make the cognitive choice.
So what is a high functioning empath? What is your definition of that?
A high functioning empath is somebody that is aware not only of their connection with empathy, aka the ability to read, translate other people's emotions, feelings, thoughts, and the intelligence and open-mindedness to put that in a framework, not only how it applies to them, but how it applies to other people. It is, in my opinion, my perspective, the defining separation between, say, just your average Joe out there just doing what they're doing, and, you know, potentially a teacher, a healer, an artist, a philosopher, you know, and I hate to say it, you know what I mean, and it's not to be disparaging, you know, of anybody and what they do. I believe in the old-fashioned concept that anything done truthfully is done with honor and it is a good thing, but also in the same instance, not all of us are going to be rocket scientists. Not all of us are going to be philosophers and artists, and that is
Some of
where,
us have a gift for bottle washing.
well, you know, that is the separation. Some people are better leaders, some people are better teachers, and some people are better followers. So there is
There's
a separation.
honor in all
There are layers,
Yes.
as my friend Yoga would say.
Yeah.
And some people are just at different layers than others. It doesn't mean they can't transcend it.
Oh,
But
you mean you make people cry? No.
But,
I think
well,
the
you know,
donkey moment
again,
there.
listen, a duck is a duck is a duck.
Yep.
This is the unique element of the world that we live in.
And sometimes it's just about individual connections, being able to talk to other people and really listen and care and be there for them, and
Well,
in the moment completely give a shit.
Again, to some degrees, you know, what speaks to us, what gets people involved, where do people want to be, you know. Here I am, I'm out here talking my shit on a Tuesday night, playing some tracks, playing some tunes, pitching my stuff. Yeah, you know, that's me, you know, and if it touches or resonates or helps or gives any kind of framework, of any kind of fucking insight or anything, then guess what? You know, for me, that's something good. That's a positive element, you know what I mean? And I can take that and I can leave the rest behind. And then anything else from there is just, it's bonus, it's gravy.
And that's one of your biggest philosophies: take what you need, leave the rest behind.
Yes.
Which brings us full circle back to anybody who turns around and says, I have the way and the only way, and this is the way it is, and that's the way it's got to be. Run.
Well,
To me, if
but again,
somebody says
context.
this is the only way that everything is, you know, it's on a spiritual level.
Spiritual level, yes, I would
Context,
agree.
spiritual level.
You know what I mean?
You know?
But there are certain things, again, outside the scope. Like when we talk about, like, you know, people ask medical elements and stuff. Always make that
Science is science.
qualification. I'm not a licensed nor trained physician. I have knowledge, I have understanding. I can give you my insight, I can give you my opinion, but I will always footnote and default that, hey, I'm not a medical professional.
You're not a
You should
doctor.
speak to somebody who has better knowledge of these things. Just like I wouldn't go to the ice cream guy to fix my fucking car unless I knew the ice cream guy was a fucking mechanic.
It might be a closet
But
mechanic.
but listen, but again, it is that simple analogy that
Yeah.
some of us have better knowledge than others in specific things. I have knowledge in certain things. I try and share it. I put it out there to the degree that I can. I can do this, I can do that, but I can't do everything, and I don't even try and pretend. So that's where, again, the whole strength in numbers philosophy comes from, because we are stronger, better together when we can find those common elements, when we can find the
Agreed.
things that we can reinforce each other with. And that's where, again, a true concept of community comes from, and it's just a better way of life.
And I think that the internet has allowed people to make community all over the world now. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Well, yeah, that's, you know, we get to interact with people, you know, from Ireland to Australia to Scotland to Texas and back up here to good old Rochester, New York. So,
Right?
you know, you couldn't do that 20 years ago,
Nope.
and God knows where we'll be 20 years from now. But there are things in motion, you know, and you've talked about it, and And I've talked about it, and I know a lot of people talk.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, outside the scope of like the Mercury retrogrades, there are major
energetic shifts worldwide
that are going on.
Yes.
That are global,
Yes.
universal in their implications. And I think that's also going back to your earlier thing. I think that's what's also shining the light or forcing the context of the high functioning empaths into a little bit more motion. It's like the cicada. We've been in hibernation for 2,000 plus years, and we are the empathic cicadas that are fucking waking up.
Yes.
And taking a little bit of action on things.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I'd be curious to hear some, if anybody's out there that wants to talk about their own empathic experience.
Yes, as always, please feel free to, throw your comments out there. We will always do our best to respond to them. This is meant to be an interactive thing. Don't get me wrong, you can sit back and listen. If you could pop that, and we'll spin out some of the other aspects of the tracks. I wasn't going to really do any specific direct music tonight. We do have other tracks and things that will be coming out down the road that I will frame and specifically utilize in upcoming podcasts. But it's always, again, a framework of kind of that day-to-day element.
No, that one's fine. Just click whatever one you want to do.
Alrighty. So yes, anything you guys want to throw out there, please feel free. This is kind of like in that moment of time on Interdimensional Cable.
So what do we want to play here?
Just pop it through.
Pick
What?
one.
No, just pop it through. Yeah.
Oh, random it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I gotta
yes.
know
She's
what
not the
pop
swiftest witch in the bunch.
No, I don't know what pop it through means. I thought maybe that means
yeah, no,
that's
why we have previous discussions on these
but
things.
You
But
never
yes,
said the words
that was an
pop it
hour
through.
ago. That's too long to really expect.
You never used the words pop it through. You said you would tell me what you wanted to play. So there.
See, this is how a witch always justifies his shit.
Hey, we empaths are great at justifying anything.
Of course.
I'm perfect.
Of course. Oh, but yeah, I mean.
I'm also sweet and innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because I ate a lot of sweets earlier.
That's why you were trying to negotiate with me at 2 o'clock in the morning about how you would trade your ass if I would watch Strange
I did not say
Things.
I would.
No. Now we're going to hang it all out.
It was not
you were
Stranger
literally
Things.
willing to trade your asshole to get me to watch a goddamn show.
It was Supernatural.
Supernatural. Okay,
Yes.
I thought it was Stranger Things. So Supernatural.
No. Stranger Things I got tired of. I got annoyed by that. I watched like the first season and thought it was cool. Got into the second season and it's like, oh, it's kind of going from cool to weird now.
TV is funny these days. I mean, there's some interesting stuff out there, and you know me, I kind of tend to dig deep into the more obscure type of odd little element of things. Because, again, art really does reflect life.
It does.
You know what I mean? And in many ways, these are elements that we wouldn't really get to really see and experience without somebody putting it out there to be like, hey, here's a story, let me tell you.
Yeah, kind of like that Supernatural thing.
Yeah, well.
Cool story.
Yeah.
Let me tell you
But I already listen. I have boundaries, and I will. No means no.
You will love it.
I will not.
You would too.
Nope.
Yes, you would.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope. I am the Black Knight, and you shall not pass.
You're stubborn.
I am.
It's just a flesh wound. What are you gonna do? Bite me?
No, I'll bleed on you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, you got to get it right. You got to know the reference before you try.
No, it's like, what are you gonna do? Bite my ankles? That's one of the questions that was in there.
Oh well.
Yeah, it's just a flesh wound. I'll fight you. What
but
do
again,
you
we're
do?
back to
Bite
the
my
Monty
ankles?
Python
yes,
boys
we're
and
right
girls.
back onto yes.
Always
I'm not
listen.
dead
I mean,
yet.
again,
I feel fine.
Great framework of reference
See,
to look
even
back.
Monica says it's a good show.
Yeah, well, that's fine, and you and Monica can watch it together and live happily ever after.
Monica, you want to watch? You want to watch Supernatural Marathon with me? She'd do it. She'd do it.
Listen. I tried. It didn't.
No, the first season, I will admit. It's
again,
hokey
if
as
I
shit.
don't, if I lose interest in something, forget about it. It's this is just how I am.
Yeah.
That's what happened with disco. I am the reason why disco failed. By the way, I I accept responsibility. Yes.
Tell me how this
because
is all your
I
fault.
became disinterested in it, and I was just like, fuck that.
Okay.
And therefore my will shall be, and it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
that's how it works.
It was wildly popular with a lot of people.
Yeah, and
Still
where is it
is.
now? No, it's not.
Well, some people. I've talked to some people.
Well, yeah, and some people say a lot of things about a lot of things, and
Yep.
a lot of it's bullshit, and what does it matter? In my world, disco is dead, and that's all that matters to me.
There you go. So supernatural is dead to you.
Yes, is dead to me.
So, it's sad.
No, not really.
It is.
Because listen, that just means there's more supernatural for somebody else.
No, there's
I
no
don't need
more
to
or
suck
less.
up the bandwidth. Listen, this is the great free will. I don't have to have it removed. I don't have to start up a cancel culture type of thing.
Exactly the thing. People can not like something.
Yeah,
and
I
move
just
on
choose
from
not
it.
to.
You're
I
right.
don't give a shit.
So it'll just be something that I will have to experience alone.
Yes,
A little alone time for
that's
Shiya.
fine. You and your vibrator can enjoy Stranger Things together,
Not Stranger Things. Why do you keep going back to Stranger Things?
because it is strange. And
It's
Stranger Things,
supernatural. Stranger
supernatural,
Things
they're all
is-
the same fucking
No,
thing.
oh my God, no.
Yeah.
It's a whole different.
Yeah,
animal.
no, it's all the same thing.
No, totally different.
It's all bullshit.
Okay, yeah, well,
Hey, you open
All
the
right.
door.
No,
That's what
you
happens.
started
You invite
it.
a wolf
You
in.
started it.
He's gonna knock shit over. He's gonna piss on the floor. He's gonna bite and chew things. This is
Bad Wolfie, bad,
Yeah.
bad. Let me get the newspaper out.
Yeah, try that with a wolf. See how that works for you.
Yeah, get my arm ripped off. Jesus.
Yeah, not gonna end well. But again, everybody has the framework of what they enjoy, what they like, and that brings us again full circle to the whole context of empathy, because empathy in its purest form again is about our ability to feel, our ability to translate, to process those elements, be it our own feelings or other people's feelings, and within those feelings, that energy lies all the other hidden details, the code, the story, the details, again, however you choose to frame it.
One of the biggest problems I see with empaths, and yes, I'm eating another one of these nerd rub thingies.
Even after you're talking about how you were all
Even
fuck,
after
put
I
that
fucked
fucking shit.
myself.
You know what? No, fuck you. Put that back. Because I'm not gonna spend the night with you. Put it back. No, put it back. You were fucking complaining not even an hour or two ago.
I was about eating. Stranger Things is more about aliens. Supernatural is more about demons and angels.
But who's to
and
say
stuff.
that aliens and demons and angels are all the same stuff? See, that's my point. That's all I'm saying. It's all the same fucking thing.
Yeah, but we had Leviathans and Supernatural.
So, but again, you know, it was witchcraft 200 years ago. Now it's fucking Wi-Fi today. You know what I
But-
mean? It's just how we choose to look at it.
I'm going to go back on the empath thing for a bit. So, one of the biggest problems I see with empaths is, first of all, empaths love to try to help and heal other people, right? The thing is, when we're reading others, there are so many empaths that look into the soul of a person and see this beautiful, bright, shiny soul, radiant light, and think, and their potential that their soul could be, and think that that's somehow the person in their current meat suit. And don't necessarily see who they are now, they see who they could be. And let me help you get from this poor wounded animal to what you could be, and never
Well-
see that maybe that person is covered in toxic radiation.
I'll take it even 2 steps further. We choose what we want to see. We will create elements of things. We will justify it. Oh, they have a beautiful core and potential. No, that's an illusion. It's bullshit. You know what I mean? It is a framework. It is a lie, more times than not, that we use to kind of smooth around the edges for something else. In relationships, this tends to translate. We react with that physical context. Oh, wow, you know, we connect. He's hot. Okay. But he's got a good soul,
Wait,
you know.
wait, he's my soulmate.
Right. It will just spin it in so many
I
different
feel
fucked up
connected.
bullshit ways. And all we're really doing, again, is just justifying an element to make it more digestible, to, again, give justification to our actions, our thoughts, our feelings.
Yeah.
And it's always just a trade-off, you know what I mean? We'll
Well,
trade
that's what
off
I
those
tell people.
elements.
It's what I tell people all the time. Just because you're a soulmate or a twin flame did not necessarily make you compatible in this particular lifetime, and it doesn't excuse your current behavior.
Or the one that I always like to pull out is just like, oh, you're a Gemini. We just can't have a relationship because me and Geminis, we just don't connect. It's just a thing. It's a Gemini thing. You know how Geminis are. You know.
Oh, yeah, those two-faced
And it's just like fucking idiots. These were frameworks, again, from very old cultures and elements that you are misapplying, you're misreading it, you're mistranslating it to suit the context of, oh, I can use this to now justify that.
Yeah, there are positive and negatives to every zodiac that's out there, and people can either walk in the divine aspects of them, or they can walk in the toxic aspects of them. And
now,
I
are there
every
common themes? Yes, you can see some of those elements, but again, if you don't look at context, aka again, if you don't look at the unique elements of the individual, and this is why, again, if you look at astrology is much deeper than, oh, you were born on this day. No, you have different houses in different frameworks based on when, where, what time you were fucking born. All those things now come into play and create the actual bigger picture.
It's like a fingerprint that people try to treat like it's a big overlay, but it's as unique as a fingerprint. Everybody's star chart is absolutely unique.
Right, and it is not as simple as, well, today, you know, Taurus can expect financial beauty. Really? So that means every fucking Taurus in the world is just going to come into an extra check? No, it's bullshit. These are just little pieces of bait that people like, oh, this tastes good. May I have another?
You can have an overall energy that people have for an overall sign, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to have the same experience, you know? This is a potentially prosperous time for Tauruses, you know?
Oh, but see, I think it gets even better because many of these elements now have become self-reinforcing, self-fulfilling prophecies. You've got fucking Aries walking all over the place now because they have become so emboldened and so conditioned by their fire sign. Right. Now, there's no coincidence that every major female figure in my life has been an Aries. Go figure that one.
Yes, this witch is an Aries too.
Yes, and my mother's an Aries, and my son's mother was an Aries.
You are attracted to stronger people. And unfortunately, sometimes that brings a strength in a positive context or a strength in a negative context.
Yeah, well, there are no coincidences sometimes in the patterns that we go through. You know, my pattern, again, you know, I tended to reflect a particular element for many years, and then I had a big pause when I became a parent. So those elements kind of got turned off for a while until that dynamic changed, and then I kind of went into a free fall of, okay, what the fuck do I do now? It's 20 years later. Who the fuck am I? What is this fucking world? Where did everything I know go?
Yeah.
And we adapt or we drown, basically, in many aspects of it. And drowning is not always an instantaneous type of thing. We'll go through that slow treading water.
Well, you've heard of the frog in the pot analogy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, for those who haven't, if you put a frog in a boiling pot of water, he's going to hop out. You put him in a lukewarm pot of water and gradually turn up the heat, he'll stay there until his goose is cooked.
Well, yeah, it's conditioning. It is the framework of... And Monica, yeah, great. You know, souls do change from life to life. And, you know, elements of past lives, you know, regardless of how you want to translate it, everybody has a little bit different take on it, a little different variation. I think there are some common elements that have truth in them. But again, some of this has been the carryover of religious elements. And for anybody who doesn't believe that's the case, I dare you, go back and compare Egyptian religious aspects, aka Horus and their gods, and the coincidental element of Christianity,
life, death,
and those elements of
go back to ancient
right, Son of God and crucifixion,
or Zoroastrianism, which was the first monotheistic path.
So all these elements have been kind of taken and passed on from each other, and they tend to reflect It's the same analogy when you talk about some of the other, the term witch, the term witchcraft, magic have these negative connotations that have been branded, conditioned. Halloween, the Wizard of Oz, you know what I mean? Again, 1,001 different analogies that have now layer upon layer upon layer reinforcing these elements. So when you say certain words, they tend to trigger particular responses.
Yeah, I mean, even in the course of my life, when I was younger and a young witch, and I would go and tell somebody I was a witch, I would be met with looks of horror. Oh my God, you demonic Satan worshiper. Nowadays, I tell people I'm a witch, and they barely even blink. At least up here. In the South, they still look at me.
Well, it all depends where you go. I have long hair and tattoos. I can go some places and be fine. I can go other places. People look at me and they automatically assume, oh, he must be a dirty biker. Oh, he must be a drug dealer, blah, 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 blah. Then I turn around and I hit them with the college education thing, and then they're like, oh, shit.
Yep.
This fucking freak has got a brain on top of it, and then it's usually the fight or flight mentality.
Yep.
But also in the same instance, I am, as my love refers to me many times, I am a cheeky wolf. I will purposely go out and bait the asshole sometimes. I take great pleasure in it. I will not lie.
But tell them what I said to the people on the corner as we're driving out of Walmart one day, and they're all preaching on the corner.
Well, you did the whole Hail Satan thing.
No, I didn't do the Hail Satan.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not. I just said, no, thank you, I'm a witch. And then his eyes
but that's what it translated to them. That's all they heard was Hail Satan.
Yeah.
And again, true story. Here's a framework of an analogy. People talk about Satan, and it's like, oh, the devil, all these dark elements. I actually know somebody that is a member of the Church of Satan.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, he has more compassion, more respect, more humility than most people that I have met in my life who have, in my opinion, hidden behind religious dogma, the snake oil salesmen and the false prophets, the born-again Christians that are preaching love and acceptance while they're fucking your 13-year-old daughter after Bible study.
Or like the Westboro people.
I love those Westboro guys.
The Westboro guys, gives every religion a bad name. God hates fags, therefore we're killing American soldiers overseas. I've never understood the analogy of how they got from one to the other. God hates fags, therefore we're killing soldiers, so we've got to protest. God's killing soldiers, so we've got to protest soldiers.
Oh, it's the framework of the self-justification. Listen, the bishop walks out. God has said the heretics and the heathens threatened our ascension to the kingdom of heaven. Everybody fucking rallies. Oh my God, you're going to deny me my afterlife, my fucking ultimate gift? Who the fuck do I have to kill? So we sent them out in thousands, in mass, to basically, my God says you have to die.
Yep, control.
But along the way, we're going to rape your women and put your children into slavery, and basically acclimate all of your cultural and spiritual elements and warp them into our home, and hello, Roman Empire. And then what happens? All of a sudden, Jesus shows up. And now Christianity. And then comes the church.
Oh, God. Yeah, I shared a fun thing today on my timeline.
You want to talk about interdimensional cable, just do a little bit of historical background about the Catholic Church and everything. And again, that's not to begrudge anybody's belief or spirituality, because there are people within every religion that are genuine, honest, good people. However, as Scripture says, beware of false prophets. You can teach a parrot to recite Scripture. It doesn't mean a fucking thing. Words mean nothing without the action, without the intent, without the context behind them.
Yep. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the history of the church, Mother Church, on adopting and adapting. But, I mean, that's what we do all throughout history. Every culture, every religion, everything, it's all adopted and adapted. And if you go back and say, well, what's the real thing? I don't think we can go back and point that this is the real thing. It's everybody's interpretation on the universe.
But what we can say is what is not the right thing. If you look at it historically, the church has a nasty tendency and pattern of suppressing women.
Yes.
Of manipulating elements within that framework.
Yeah.
Okay. We know that there was a gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Yes,
we know
it
from the very Bible that they all claim to follow.
And then they voted half of it out.
That Jesus hung out with lepers and whores, aka Mary Magdalene. She was beloved, quote unquote, beloved to Jesus as the Son of God, but somehow she gets erased from pretty much the whole fucking narrative.
It doesn't fit the patriarchal.
Right. It threatens the
then we go
construct.
right into the toxic masculinity.
Right. So what ended up happening, many of her aspects of her gospel, of those true philosophies, actually spread out and became the framework for many of the pagan and Celtic elements that come down the line. The Morgan and many other of these elements have common ties back into the old gods, but also the new god, because the new god really was just a different mask on the old god, because just like what was witchcraft then and is science now, that was the best way that people could interpret it.
Yeah, you want to talk about magic, go into a Catholic church and go light a candle for somebody. How is that not magic?
Or you say an act of contrition. The act of contrition is like
How
this,
is that not magic?
It's like negative energy, wax on, wax off. You say these words within a ritualistic context, and all of a sudden you're forgiven.
Yeah.
So it's absolution. It's
all of it's magic.
It's a cleansing.
Magic. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at the communion. The communion is a blood ritual.
It is.
Drink of my body. This is my blood. This is my flesh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's not cannibalistic
right.
at all.
Well, but again, that is the framework of the old blood religion. Right.
The old ancient sacrifices. The Wicker Man,
yes,
sort of
the
thing.
fertility ritual. Yeah. Again, there's 1,001 different analogies, but they all have a common theme of being adaptations from one time period to the next. And you can see in all elements, music.
Yeah.
Rock and roll takes its framework from blues and other elements of gospel and soul and folk music, and the variations just go on and on and on and on. Everything takes from the past, adapts, applies the elements, and then frames it into the new, into the here and now. Punk music, hardcore, hip-hop versus rap versus, any number of elements. And again, this is just music.
Yep.
That we're talking about.
You see even in music, somebody, disco versus rock.
Well, fuck it. Disco's not a form of music. Okay, no.
See, but that's my point. Exactly.
No, that's different. That's out of context.
Point. Exactly.
Disco was an aberration.
It
was a disturbance in the force. It was a unnatural, basic mutant element that just... It spawned from a sewer in New York City somewhere. It came crawling out. It lived. It tried to reproduce. The polyester really was just not conducive to, reproduction. And it died the ugly death it deserved.
We're wearing fucking polyester on some of these documentaries.
Yeah, well, that's like Tom Cruise in the closet type of thing. Anybody who's watched South Park, I think that's a great episode.
I don't know this one.
Oh, yeah. It just basically, John Travolta, Kanye West, and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And one goes in the closet, and they're trying to get him to come out of the closet. He doesn't want to come out of the closet, so they goes in the closet to try and get him out of the closet. Now, there are two of them in the closet, and they really want to come out of the closet, but they can't, so the third one's trying. So they're all finally in the closet. And the Kanye character is basically, you gotta come out of the closet, I'm gonna shoot this motherfucking bitch. You know what I mean? It's just this whole parody on this male element that, you know, we're so traumatized by the cock that, you know what I mean, everything, you know, gets framed in elements of homosexuality and who's in the closet, who's not, who's fucking who, this, that, you know, and it's all just so spun out. And it's just like, oh yeah, you know, who the fuck cares? And South Park is a great element. Say what you want. It is definitely the counterculture kind of satirical framework for the world around us.
Now they have these things all over the place about how South Park has told the future on several different occasions, like Trump as president or stuff like that. Now, do you believe in any of that? That maybe Matt and Trey have a little bit of prescience to them?
No, I don't think it takes a lot to connect the dots, and just you can pretty much theorize, and especially with some of the characters that we have running around. You know, they're no offense, they're like brain damaged goats just wandering the fields, eating everything that they can encounter, shitting along the way. And, you know, it's not hard to say, yeah, well, this is probably a particular element. You know what I mean?
Monica siding with you on the disco thing.
Of course, because she knows it's true.
I feel betrayed. No, I mean, I don't like disco music either, but it's still music.
No.
Yes.
No.
But that was my point, is that, you know, hey, there's no wrong music. Is there?
You know, again, I reserve the right to just be like,
you reserve the right to not like
listen,
what you
I
don't
killed
like.
fucking disco, so you know, somebody wants to try and bring it back to life, that's on them. I did my part for King and Country, and
was it Video Killed the Radio?
I fought that demon and I killed its ass.
Okay, there you go. So what was it? Video Killed the Radio Star?
Oh yes, I don't remember what the fuck that was from. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of elements, you know, that you can see within, again, the whole art thing, be it through music or literature. You know, we were talking, you know, earlier about 1984.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean, last night, and the framework of how Orwell saw the writing on the wall of where, you know, certain elements were going, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, you know, and it's just like, no, it's not hard to really. You know, especially when you have a framework of things like the Roman Empire and Nazi Germany.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? We've already been there. So, like, why is it so hard to imagine that we won't end up back there again? You know, anybody who thinks that we didn't come real fucking close here in our own country here in the United States.
Oh,
you know what?
Times, yeah.
Guess what? We came real fucking close, man. Real close to embracing that whole chaotic, let's all go off the cliff under, you know, this blazing banner of God and country.
I still think that we're still far too divided than we need to be. I think that if people
we're divided because
together,
there is a small segment of our population that has again weaponized elements of things that used to just be accepted elements, like science or basic humanity aspects that we didn't have to agree. You didn't have to like the fact that Joe and Bob suck each other's dick on Saturday nights in the comfort of their home. But it didn't mean that they couldn't have a life just like everybody else. Now everything's been, again, so polarized. We live on a flat earth. The vaccine is really a conspiracy to pump everybody with, you know, somehow tracking trips. Where, again, as I said earlier, here's the simple truth for all you fucking idiots out there. Any one of you that has a credit card or a bank card or a social security card or a fucking driver's license or a phone or a computer or a card, guess what? You're already on the fucking grid, asshole. They don't need to inject you with anything. You already did it willingly. Okay? So stop fucking living in this plastic bubble where, you know, and again, you don't have to agree. I don't agree with everything the Democrats want to do, and I surely don't agree with everything that Republicans want to do. But just because you're a Republican doesn't make you a Nazi, and just because you're a Democrat doesn't make you some liberal communist plant that just basically wants to turn us all into, fucking drones. It's like, come on, get a grip.
Jesus was a socialist.
Right. Jesus was a socialist. He threw the moneylenders out of the temple.
Yeah.
Let them try and pull that shit now, and
they'd arrest him.
Right.
Well,
They put him. Well, I mean, here's the fucked up analogy. He ended up right back on the cross.
Yep.
He'd get crucified, quite proverbially. And instant karma. John Lennon wrote a song about that.
Doing like, I love Jesus, that would crucify his ass.
Well, I mean, again, the first ones that want to, drop bombs on people, or tell women what to do with their bodies, or basically, when a community wants to go out and protest how they're being treated, let's just we'll shoot the dogs on them. You know what I mean? Or what I mean? Oh, you know what I mean? I'm sorry. I was in fear for my life. You threatened me with a cell phone, so I had to put 38 bullets in your back.
Oh God, yep.
Okay.
That one.
Anybody who thinks that that's somehow justifiable, I'm sorry. There's no more framework for it, because we've tried. We've tried for many generations, through many variations and contexts within civilizations and stuff like that. And if there's anything that history has taught us, that it doesn't fucking work.
Yep.
It doesn't work.
No, absolutely true.
You know what I mean? So say what you want. You can try and play well, my God is better than your card. Well, it's just like, well, where the fuck is your God then?
Yep.
Until somebody's God comes down and fixes the shit and cleans up the mess and puts it into a real framework instead of all this rhetoric bullshit, guess what? It's on us.
It's on us.
It's on us.
I saw an interesting meme the other day that somebody was asking Jesus, why do you allow this and that and hate and war and all this?
It's like, you fucking idiots do that yourselves.
And he turns around and he asks, funny, I was going to ask you the same thing. Why do you allow it,
Right.
So it's definitely a thing.
I mean, it is the ultimate in denial and arrogance to somehow, you'll use God in one hand to justify old types of insane bullshit, but avoid the very basic responsibility of just taking care of your own shit.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's insanity. It really is. And therein becomes, I think, one of the bigger now contrasts that I think people are becoming more aware of. Many of us, the high-functioning empaths among us, are really looking at this and saying, you know what, this is just too much. Because unfortunately, and here comes the crux, the paradox, at what point, again, do we draw the line? Do we wait for them to blow the fucking planet up? Do we wait for them to poison things to the degree that we all got to live underground like fucking mole men? Or, that you have card-carrying Nazis with torches and pitchforks roaming the streets?
The light workers need to turn on the fucking lights. We need to illuminate this shit for what it is. We need to call some things into accountability and say, hey, we see this. We're not idiots. We're not blind to it.
Now, in reference, so I want to clarify this before I say it so it doesn't get taken out of context. I refer to my son as Monkey, okay? So he is my monkey. So when I talk about my monkey, I am talking about my son.
Yes.
And the analogy, the framework is when he was a baby, I used to play the White Album to help, put him to sleep, to kind of interact with him when he would be cranky and stuff like that. But long story short, he loved the Beatles. And one particular track, Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Monkey, kind of became our theme song throughout the years. It was a go-to track for us. So when I talk about my monkey, I am talking about my son. Now, with that defined, the monkey has a great analogy that he has used many times, and I think he's right. I think he's got the insight. It's going to take something of such an epic and global element. And, here's the sad reality. Obviously, a fucking pandemic didn't do it, because it just really just forced the context of stupid versus,
For me, it separates the wheat from the chaff.
Well, not just that, because innocent people pay the price. But
yes.
But here it is. It's going to take a fucking zombie apocalypse. It's going to take literally fucking War of the Worlds, the Martians invading for us to get past all the stupid bullshit that separates us as humans, to be able to truly and finally unite against something that isn't human. Because we don't have the perspective. We don't respect it. We don't appreciate it. We don't respect the planet. We don't respect its life. And we don't respect each other.
No.
So, again, if you think about it, if you look at us as a species, and this is the running joke amongst, again, some of the intellectual communities, we're a fucking virus.
We are the
to
virus.
Anything else outside the box that would look at us, I would be absolutely fucking terrified if I were a Martian.
The Matrix actually framed that out quite nicely.
Right, the Matrix is a great another that we are the fucking virus run rampant on this planet, and this planet is desperately trying to get rid of the syphilis that is us.
Have I ever told you my soapbox on my 3 things that I think are the problem?
Well, please share them with our listeners.
1, lack of personal responsibility. Somehow my shit is everybody else's fault. Okay. Lack of respect for self and others. And 3, the total sense of entitlement. I exist, therefore you owe me.
Why didn't you pay me?
Because I don't know you damn shit.
No, you owe me.
I don't know
you.
you.
You owe me big.
No, I don't know you.
Yeah, no, you owe me at all.
I don't know you.
Yeah, no, listen, you don't want to go the way of disco. Okay, just use that analogy.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
Come on, come on.
Brianna's like, we are the number one parasite. But yeah, I mean, it's
it's sad, but I'm being sarcastic. But
I know,
yes,
of course you are.
but yes, the framework really is to some degree. Now, that isn't to say that there isn't hope. With knowledge comes power, and with that power, we can change.
I see that are the negative, the draws, the societal elements that are bringing people into this area of narcissism, like we were talking about, the weaponized empath,
Well, again, it's conditioned, it's taught. This is, if you go to business school, this is the number one framework element of business, is in convincing people to buy shit that they don't need, that they don't want, from lawyers being able to use language and law deceptively to achieve whatever outcome your self your religious types, like your Jimmy Swaggarts and shit, that will basically
God says that I need a new doghouse with air conditioning.
Yes, for the air conditioned doghouse insanity to to any number of elements that we see again framed and that we are pushed and taught to utilize and manipulate.
Again, sweetheart.
And that framework again is passed on. It's reinforced.
Yeah.
Again, use this to accomplish that.
There's a difference between, I believe, capitalism and consumerism.
Oh, most doubt, but I mean, again, it is, again, a self-fulfilling prophecy, a Frankenstein syndrome. We create the monster, now the monster runs out of control, everybody points the finger at the monster, what the fuck is going on, but we created the goddamn monster.
Well, so how do we get our pitchforks out and put it down?
Again, strength in numbers. Those of us that have the knowledge and the will, to the degree that we can carry it forward, that we can teach, we can build, we can support and help each other. The other simple context, and this is the shitty reality, somebody has to be in a position to clean up the mess when the time comes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not going to clean itself up.
No, and that's, again, with that sense of entitlement of, well, it's not my mess, it's your mess,
Yeah, but it's all of our messes.
Exactly.
Even if you're not responsible for it, guess what? You're still responsible for it.
We still got to live in it, so
right.
we might not have created it, to do it, to kind of quote a song that you hate. We didn't start the fire.
Oh, Jesus. Good God.
I knew I was going to get that reaction.
Yeah, I'd rather go to 10 years after and be like, I'd love to change the world, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Besides what I am trying to do, trying to bring a message, a little bit of hope, a little bit of insight,
light,
some sarcasm, some
good vibes, humor.
my own personal rhetoric, and listen, take what you need, leave the rest behind. You don't have to agree with anything or a little bit or everything. That's everybody's call on that. But in our own way, we're putting it out there, saying, hey, here's something else. Here's another way to look at it. Here's another option.
Yep. Brianna brings up something here. Until we decide that we're guests on the planet and stop destroying everything for lazy comforts, we're a parasite. That goes into everything, we're talking about there, is that we have to take responsibility for ourselves. We have to take responsibility for each other as well. The greater good that you started off with, that sometimes we need to do things for the greater good, the needs of the many and all that.
Well, yeah, the Star Trek analogy, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one, really is a philosophical element taken, and it's already been in play in existence within many of our cultures throughout the years, that this defines in many ways the high functioning empath of being more concerned about the well-being of others. Now again, imagine this in its truest form. If everybody cared more about everybody else, by default, that geometric pattern would mean literally we have a blueprint for close to fucking paradise.
And we go right
in a real honest sense, because if that were true, that means that everybody would have the support of the people around them. And in turn, in that reinforcement, it is the same analogy with a rug of when the fibers are interwrapped, there are literally millions of strands of the fiber that are woven together to create this element. And that is, and again, in the simplest analogy, the blueprint.
Yes.
But it doesn't work when you have elements that are not
translating in my lifetime. I don't.
I mean, it happens, but it happens in smaller pieces.
Smaller pieces.
It's not something we're going to unfortunately be able to achieve globally until we are forced. And using the analogy that Brianna said, that until our mentality changes, and unfortunately, the only way to change the mentality in a full-scale, large global element is to literally get kicked in the nuts.
Yeah.
And the pandemic was.
That was a good chance.
Well, I think. Listen, I personally think, and this is my opinion, my perspective, that this was the universe's way of just kind of upping the
ante.
Right, saying, okay, listen, we're trying to let you guys know, so I'm going to turn up the heat here. We're going to throw a fucking pandemic. Get your heads out of your asses. Obviously, that wasn't enough, so I suspect we're going to start seeing, as we have been, more global elements of storms,
hopefully we can
volcanoes, drought and famine. Obviously, idiots with bombs and dicks in their hand are going to have to blow some shit up in the process somewhere. So yeah, expect that element is going to have to come into play. But here's the good news, here's the hope. Eventually, and history has proven that this insanity, like everything else, comes and goes in cycles. So the trick is going to be, when this particular cycle of insanity crashes against the rocks, as it is inevitably bound to do, those of us who know and have learned and have the ability have to be ready and willing to set a different stage for the future.
We need to be the change we want to see.
Yes. Well, but we also have to lay it out in practical context. You can't just say to everybody, hey, jump on board on the hippie commune. It's not going to work.
Unfortunately, no. And Brianna's brought it up. The idea of an empathy-centric, thing sounds lovely, but the pandemic showed that we're not ready for that.
They're not.
No.
And if anything, what the pandemic really showed is that we have a huge segment of our population that, and I'm going to just say it, they really don't give a shit about other people. They only care when it applies in the context of what fit. And there, yeah, Brianna says it great. Seems like the me first, screw you mentality people have been catching toe tags recently, and empathic people are surviving. Yes, you are right. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it is also, again, indicative of that element that has now festered and grown like a cancer, and it's fucking now, you know,
and you know
the check is coming due.
I read an article to where even some of those people who are the me first, screw you, have been like still staying with that attitude right up until the moment they catch that toe tag.
Hey, listen,
You know,
I mean, again,
it's scary. Like at some point, you would think that somebody would see the light.
but here's the thing:
walk the path of redemption.
it is being reinforced by people that are not only disingenuous, but are now knowingly manipulating it for monetary gains.
Yeah.
You know, like you know, some of these network media entities
fear. You know, I
force
had
the agenda to get them to buy things. This, like again,
had one of my
here it is.
clients frame it
I'm
perfectly.
going to open the door to chaos, and here it comes.
Uh-oh.
Mike Lindell, my pillow guy, is a fucking idiot asshole. Okay, I have said it. Okay, he is a fucking idiot asshole. Okay, anybody that's going to go around and try and push some fucking insane aspect like that they're hiding microchips in the vaccine.
Oh, God.
Okay,
Yeah, I know.
guess
No,
what?
they're not.
This, I wouldn't trust them to make a fucking peanut butter sandwich, and people need to listen. You don't have to agree with any of these things, but just use basic common sense. The world we live in, they don't need to put microchips in the vaccines, because the microchips are in your phones and in your bank cards and in your driver's license and in your cars and your TV sets. You fucking idiots.
You paid for the microchips.
Right. You went out and bought the latest version microchip, morons.
Yes. But one of my clients framed it out very well, is that fear porn, she calls it fear porn. Fear porn sells.
Fear porn definitely
gets
sells.
Ratings,
Oh, yeah.
Ratings. It's fear porn. And they can control. It brings control.
And it happens on both ends of the spectrum, by the way. This is not
one
to just frame it as one side. Both sides do it. They manipulate, okay, on both ends of the spectrum. Okay, if anybody thinks that any of these people really have your or mine's best interest at heart, ask them to fucking give up their salaries to pay for children's school lunches.
Yeah.
And then come back to me and tell me about who's real and who's not. Now, that isn't to say that there isn't truth within it, but unfortunately, a lot of that truth has now again been weaponized.
Yes.
In retaliation for the bullshit
Very much so.
being weaponized. So where lies the element? Where should we be? Again, some of it should be basic common sense. We live in a world and society that everything we do is now interconnected. We're on the internet. Okay? The FBI is listening to me right now. Guess what? I don't give a fuck. Okay? I'm not condoning hurting anybody. I'm not condoning violence. I'm not suggesting violence or anything off the wall. I'm
suggesting personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility and
empathy.
Some element of truth. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, again, you can take that to whatever degree you want. You're entitled to think and believe who you want. But if we're going to use the framework here, again, within where I live in the United States, we have a particular element called freedom of speech. And that freedom of speech allows us to talk about the things even if we don't necessarily like it. It doesn't give us the right to act out upon it. I don't like it. I don't have to agree. I think Steve Bannon is a piece of shit. I think Mike Lindell is a piece of shit.
Now, see, that's where people get messed up. Freedom of speech versus freedom from consequences.
Right.
You can say whatever you want without getting put in jail in the United States, but that doesn't mean you don't have consequences, social or otherwise.
But I need to clarify this real quick because it's important for anybody who's listening now or listen to this down the road. I use two very political name elements that are obviously right, but I also need to frame that I thought and I still believe that John McCain was a fucking hero, okay, who tried to find a balance between the right and left, to find a middle ground, who fought for his country, who suffered and bled for his country, okay? So again, you have different representatives of the modern Republican Party, right? It is the framework, the rhetoric of the individuals. I don't agree with everything that they say. Like, again, I don't agree with everything that Liz Cheney says, but I respect her for being one of the only fucking people to stand up on the right-wing element and say, no, Trump is bullshit, okay, that this is a lie, okay, the election wasn't stolen, okay, none of this fucking shit happened, okay, because guess what? If all this stuff were that easy to fucking hack into, we wouldn't have the system and the society that we have, people. Barack Obama would have never been elected. We wouldn't have elements of credit card debt. We wouldn't have credit scores. We wouldn't have banks. Okay? And let me tell you, their infrastructure systems are even less complicated than the goddamn voting systems. We've been doing this for generations, and we never had a problem until this asshole showed up and basically took a chapter out of every strongman authoritarian's book and basically said, oh, you can't believe it, God told me I won. It's bullshit, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that all of his policies were bullshit. It doesn't mean that certain elements that are, again, quote-unquote right-wing are wrong, just as much as it says that not every element that is left or democratic or liberal, whatever label you want to put it, is wrong. It's not bad to want to take care of children and elderly and sick people, that anybody should have to die in fucking misery.
It's a liberal thing that we should have basic health care without having to mortgage.
Or that a woman's right to choice, that a woman should ultimately have the only say in what is done to her body, that somehow that's a liberal extreme. No, that's just basic common fucking sense.
Or equal rights.
But also in the same analogy, you know, I believe we should be more fiscally conservative. I think we waste money on stupid shit. And I would really like to see a better accountability. So I identify a little bit more sometimes with libertarians, because I look at our fucking government and say, why are we paying all you assholes all this fucking money to fuck it up? Why does ExxonMobil pay no taxes? Okay, ask yourself that simple question. How does that make fucking sense?
Except for the children.
Because they basically claim rights on this spot, suck the shit out of the ground, and then resell it to us. And we're all supposed to smile as we choke on the pollution and the side effects from it. And that's not to say I want to get rid of every element of it, but we've had the technology for years to bypass this because it's not profitable for them. So it's really, again, it's all about the money. It's all about the bullshit. Anybody that wants to look at history, look at Edison and Tesla. Tesla wanted to give everybody free electricity. His concept and his ideals would mean that there wouldn't be electric bills. But Edison patented it and monetized it so that way money could be made off of it. That's why here in the United States, we're one of the last places on the fucking planet that still has a healthcare system that's based for profit.
It's funny because I saw a thing where Norway was putting out a public warning to its citizens and stuff like that, and said people with more primitive healthcare systems, blah blah blah, like the United States.
Yeah.
And it's like, we
listen,
are
you
primitive.
listen, I talk to people all the time from other places in the world, and they don't fucking hate us. They look at us like we're fucking retarded children. And I'm sorry to say it that way if it's insensitive, if you know that word somehow. But you know, again, the duck is a duck is a duck. They're looking at us and saying, what the fuck is wrong with you? How can you be this stupid? You know what I mean? And most of the people,
because it's about the almighty
it's not
power.
them, it's not you that's stupid, it's the people we allow to speak for us, to act for us, that define somehow who and what we are as a country, as a people.
And I think even that disenfranchisement with the political system has actually not fixed the political system, but completely fucking broken it even more. That disenfranchisement is not translating into
9/11. We saw over 3,000 people lose their lives because of religious extremism. We went and fought wars because of those very same elements of religious extremism.
Yes.
And guess what we found out at the end of the road? Not only did we not change anything, but we were fighting the wrong goddamn people. We made Muslims into these boogeyman scapegoats, just like we did the Japanese in World War II, just like the Nazis did to the Jews in World War II, just what the colonists did to the American Indians or the Aztecs did. You know what I mean? Guess what? History repeats itself. And these things continue to happen because we don't learn. Now, again, the high-functioning empaths, and why I think we're coming into play, into focus more, is because it's not a sustainable pattern. At some point, the chain has to break, and maybe, and you know, I'll say it.
Doesn't break us along with it.
You know what?
That's all I'm saying.
I will even say it more bluntly.
Okay.
I think some of us are evolving, just like you have the separation between Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal. I think there are literally elements now of an evolution within certain.
It's a spiritual evolution. It's an empath.
I think it's even. I think it's more than spiritual. I think there are genetic and biological elements. Because let's be honest, you know, again, some of these elements, our brains, our internal mechanisms are passed on in a genetic code.
Yeah.
So if you're going to use just that baseline of science, or AKA how a virus, if you look at the COVID goes from person to person, it kills the weak, it evolves, it gets stronger, and moves on.
Yep.
So what happens within us as a species? We grow, we reproduce, the strong become stronger, those elements get passed on from generation to generation. So there is a case to be made that the high-functioning empaths are the next level of evolution that just we haven't defined. It's not scripted. You know, 200 years from now, they may talk about this as one of those, you know, again, evolutionary crossroads, like we talk about the Ice Age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or any of these other, you know, elements in our history.
That's terrifying in its own way, you know, that we're living in those times now. It's kind of...
Well, I mean, you know, the caveman that was living during his time period, or, you know, during the Crusades, or during the colonial times. Listen, you know, again, I'm sure the American Indians, when we came stomping in here, wiping them out, asked themselves the same question. What the fuck happened? Where the fuck did these crazy white people come from?
Shiya.
You know what I mean? But it didn't change the dynamic. However, the seeds were planted.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then inevitably, you know, again, you look at Rome, you look at the Mayan culture, you look at Aztec, you look at all these frameworks from Alexander, all of them. They follow the same pattern. And then they eventually, again...
I feel like we're like in the late Roman Empire kind of style right now, where they are doing the whole let's do the Colosseum stuff and all the wonderful violence and stuff of the Colosseum to distract the populace while we try to maintain our control.
Listen, I'm ready to go full Rocky Horror. Let's do the fucking time warp.
Right? But I'm thinking that, you know, our high-functioning empaths are bringing light to this, so we're waking up. We're saying, okay, yeah, we're not going to focus on this anymore.
Yeah, Judith brings up a really good point. There's so much of it. I mean, and this is the unfortunate reality.
For those listening, you might want to read what she said.
Well, yeah. She goes, you know, she said to me that she's got sucked into watching the news and think it's gospel. It's actually an edited program that could be all fluffy and fun, but they want to install fear and uncertainty. And that is the true case at many elements. Yeah. It's not always. You got to look at the source. You got to look at the elements, the framework, the context. And she also talks about when she came across the understanding that the foster care system was actually a business, which operates as a business. She couldn't get her head around that. And then they talk about therapeutic care. Yeah, these are all
That's all.
they're illusions. They're smoke and mirrors. It's bullshit
Yep.
that we throw up there. Our prison system, guess what? It's the same thing. For generations now, it's been used as a variation not only on slavery, because they use prison labor for all types of different things.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, from an economic context, but also within the cultural element of, controlling the framework, you know what I mean, about how people live and act. Now, that's not to say, hey, if you go around killing people in some crazy batshit type of way, guess what? You got to go to fucking jail.
Yeah.
There's a price, again,
Right.
these are the elements of consequences for
You're
the
breaking
actions.
outside of the societal
But
element,
again,
becoming
our
a danger
healthcare
to
system,
society.
the foster care system, all these elements again are monetized. So by default, they are compromised. They don't have the best interest of people
No.
in mind. They have dollars. Like again, what does a fucking insurance company do? Guess what? Insurance companies are one of the biggest fucking scams of the 20th century, as far as I'm concerned. And, it's unfortunate, but, again, this is the system that we've created, and it can only sustain itself for so long. You
Absolutely.
basically can't have an industry that takes away from people to
No.
put money in their pockets for doing absolutely nothing besides maybe we'll give you some of your money back to pay for it when you need goddamn
No,
surgery.
the insurance thing's a big scam, I think. So,
Brianna, I think you're right. I think we are leading to a massive evolution. I think we're in the process of it. I think that's why we're seeing the conflicts that we are, because there is a greater gap now. There is
Yes.
a bigger distance between,
and like I said, the wheat's
I'm
separated
sorry,
from the chaff.
between the fucking Neanderthal and those of us that are like, you know what?
The wheat and the chaff. We're on the thresher floor.
You know,
right now.
we don't want to live like fucking animals.
No. I love her previous comment. It's sad how we think that we are so superior, and the rest of the world just says, "You sure are, pal. Now put on your helmet."
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that
listen, she's
is
right.
so apt.
But again,
Yep.
there's hope.
Yeah.
Okay, there really is. There's a lot. There are more of us than there are of the crazy people.
Yeah.
The crazy people just get more attention because they do crazy shit.
They're really loud about it.
Okay,
They're loud.
the elements
about
that
being
really
crazy.
matter and are in the everyday elements of the things we do in our communities, around our families, our friends, the people that we can help and take care of. Don't get me wrong, when and where you can make a difference, love each other. It doesn't mean that you have to tolerate the stupidity and the bullshit, because guess what? I'm all with you on that, you know what? Now. But there are ways to do it. We don't have to resort to violence.
Our
You could just pull out your
high-functioning
cell
empaths.
phone, you record them,
Yeah.
send it to us, we'll upload it here. And that's
yeah.
going to, by the way, and just before we close out, that's going to be one of the new elements that I think I'm going to bring out.
Oh gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. I'm definitely thinking that's a framework. Obviously, we'll be bringing music. Again, as always, we appreciate everybody's time and support. Don't give up. Hang in there. Strength in numbers. There is a future. It's a bit crazy, it's a bit weird, but
and I think we
it's
as
worth fighting for.
high-functioning empaths are learning how to speak our truth in
We
love.
are the future. Listen, we're the ones. Listen, if we don't pick up the message, it's gonna go to shit, and we're gonna go the way of the dodo bird.
So all we can do
We're gonna be a fucking footnote.
we gotta step up and be leaders in
Yes.
whatever framework we can.
Yes. But Shiya will be back tomorrow night,
What the
8
fuck,
p.m.
Wednesday?
Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live, as well as the YouTube channel.
Yes, and there will be a special bonus for people who are watching through YouTube tomorrow
Ooh.
night.
So Shiya's got some special shit coming tomorrow night. So yeah,
The
definitely
YouTube
jump in that.
users.
I will be Thursday night doing the workshop,
Yes.
8:30 p.m. Eastern
So-
Standard Time. So anybody, that is a Zoom one. So anybody who wants to get in on that, just can go to just
Go to
go to LadyShiya.com.
It's about the identifying and navigating your trauma
Triggers.
So yeah, navigating your trauma triggers. If you
But,
haven't gotten signed up for it, go to
We
LadyShiya.com
will,
and do
we'll
so.
be having, more music coming down the pike. This is just again our second episode in the podcast. I am lining up people that will be coming on. We will be having interesting reflections of past experiences, aka I'm gonna have people come on here and share some crazy fucked up stories about the world I've seen and some of the people I've seen it with. And some of it will be humorous, some of it will be like, oh God, I wish I didn't see that. But
well, Judith, you still have Thursday night that's available, which would be your Friday morning sometime. So
yeah, no, listen.
That might actually be a better time for you if you want to get signed up.
Again, and I'm going to be expanding on it to make it more accessible.
Yeah, we have some interesting
plans.
plans.
Yeah, Shiya and I are, still in the process of fine tuning and putting these things. But the biggest problem we all have, obviously, is time, and our schedules and our timing don't always line up. So we're using technology to find ways to get around it. Part of the element of the podcast, yeah, it's great to be able to interact with people like Monica and Diana and Judith, Brianna, Josh, everybody, anybody, Ashley, whoever I missed. I love you all anyway. But the point is, we're in the moment here, we can interact, but now this is something also too that people can come back and they can listen to, and maybe they'll get something, maybe they'll get a laugh out of it, maybe they'll get some understanding, maybe it'll just make them feel connected and not fucked up in the moment. And yeah, we all live in different places and different time zones, so we have some ideas that we think are really going to help and make it easier for people to be able to be involved.
And get some one-on-one insight training.
Yeah, and some of it also too is some of this stuff is unique and personal. So again, absolutely, these are all things to be coming down the pike. We're building upon, and we will be releasing. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is really incredibly helpful for us right now. Don't get me wrong, we don't get paid for it.
Facebook, but,
okay, but it does help us in being able to reach people, and obviously within the frameworks of how places like YouTube works. Basically, we need your support so that way we can continue to reach people. Don't get me wrong, the donations are always greatly appreciated. We love it, but they are not a requirement. Now, again, if you want to do some Ghostbuster channeling some dead folk type of shit, yeah, you got to work that out with the witch here, because that shit ain't free. Okay, and that's no offense to anybody,
well, that's
but listen, I challenge anybody. Have a dead person channel through you and tell me if you want to do that shit for free. Because I know people that work in coal mines that get paid more than she does to deal with that shit. And it's just as fucking toxic and fucking unsettling. And that's no disrespect to the element and stuff, but there's a lot of these things that unfortunately not everybody's going to understand in the same framework. So yes, we do appreciate, we respect, we love the fact that people support us in whatever way they can. But the concept, the core, again, is the strength in numbers.
Yeah,
we are the good vibe tribe.
Right.
Whatever little thing you can do.
That doesn't cost anything but a
right. It doesn't cost. Right. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel for free. It doesn't cost you anything.
No.
It lets you know when, hey, we're going to come out here. Shiya's, going to be doing, the freebie one cards. Let me tell you, they love those freebie one cards.
I'm doing something extra special for anybody who does YouTube tomorrow night.
Well, see, yeah, you hear that?
Extra special. Yeah. But it's only gonna, so if
well, see, technically, there's only 6 people out here right now.
That's fine. So technically, only 6 people are hearing this.
But if 6 people go tell 6 people, and they go tell 6 people
that, hey, go see the YouTube tomorrow night, that there's gonna be extra special something from Shiya.
Yes, that's right, folks. You heard it right here. The witch is having a fire sale. Go tell your friends. Go tell everybody. Everybody, come down now. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is your chance of a lifetime. Get it all. Get it now.
That was very terrifying.
Did you really enjoy it?
Way too good at that. That was fucking terrifying. Jesus.
Yes, I'm a cheeky wolf.
Now.
I'm a cheeky wolf.
Oh my
But listen,
God.
again, we really appreciate. We love you all.
Yes. Good vibes.
I had a blast. I truly, again, this is great therapy for me, and again, hopefully, it will
it's apparently quite terrifying.
Pass something down along the way that helps everybody. But until next time or tomorrow night, again, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Facebook Live, LadyShiya.com, YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody have a great time. Love each other. Know that you are loved. And until then, peace out.
Blessed be, y'all.
Blessed be. Let the sun shine in.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Really? Oh, you want more? Maybe? No, I don't know. Well, you want me to do it over there? No. She won't let me go. Help, 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 help. I think I shit myself. Oh God. Here. Oh no.
Bye, y'all.